We are still well within a seller's market.
Hello and welcome back to Change and the Market, your weekly look at the changing real estate market. I'm Brian Chiligo, and I'm joined once again by our resident real estate expert, Chris Masiello. Chris, how you doing today?
Hey, Brian, good to be with you. Good to be with our community.
Fantastic. Let's just get right into the business. Chris, how has the market changed over the last 7 days?
You know, it's always interesting, Brian, as you get getting into the start of a new year. And, it kind of paradoxically for us in the housing industry, this is the formation of the spring market. Now, it's, the first or second week in January, it wouldn't feel that way, but it is. This is when we start to build inventory and people start thinking about, buyers start thinking about spring purchases, sellers start thinking about putting their houses on the market. So, we're very much in the formation of the spring market. And the trend for last year in sales, which we've talked about previous episodes, is that, we had declining unit count in sales, but increasing value, and that still continues. So last week we talked about a buyer strategy, and I thought today we would talk about a seller strategy.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. We're going to go right off that and transition into our second question, which is, how should we use the way things have kind of shifted over the last week? And like you said, we discussed last week a lot about if you're getting into the market for the first time as a buyer, what you should be looking at, what you should be considering. Let's look at it from the other side. Sellers, what should they be considering right now with the state the market is in?
So from a seller's perspective, it's been a seller's market for a long time. I think in some ways, maybe we've forgotten what a buyer's market looks like. And so the last couple of years, we've had appreciation rates annually up as high as 20%, which is historically very high. I wouldn't anticipate that we're going to have appreciation rates, anywhere near that. I would think probably high single digits, which is still very strong historically. But from a seller, one of the things that I think is really critical in any market is certainly condition. And so where this market has been, or this past market, I should say, was a little bit forgiving when it came to certain things like condition of properties. This market will be a little bit different than that, where there'll be higher expectation about the condition of property. So things like paint, carpet, updating, a little bit of refreshing the property is well worth the money, because you'll make your money back plus some. And I think the other piece to it, which goes along with condition, is pricing. Now we had mentioned this before, that historically, I don't know if this doesn't really apply, I don't think anymore, because we're in such different dynamics, but historically, a seller's market is when we have 6 months of inventory or less. A buyer's market is when we have 6 months of inventory or more. Right now, we're about 3 months of inventory. So we are still well within a seller's market parameters, I think by any stretch. However, what that doesn't mean is that we can be overly aggressive in pricing. So we want to make sure, like when you're talking to your agent, if you're a seller, really, you don't want to push the outer end of the envelope. You can push the envelope a little bit, but not too much, because the market just doesn't have the capacity. Because if you think about it, if a market's appreciating at 20% a year, that's north of 1% a month. And if a house is on the market for a month or so, right, then it's already gaining value even while it's on the market. But you got to be really careful about that right now, because we don't have such aggressive appreciation that we can hit the outer end of those envelopes. And so temperance in pricing and making sure that your property is in good condition, and you've kind of cleaned up, those little things like you walk by all the time and you say, I should fix that someday. Well, actually, like when you put it on the market, that's when you should fix it. Those types of things. So.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's something we haven't touched on yet. But considering the state of the market, obviously very good advice. So it's transitioning to our third question. What advice do you have for people this week, just in a general sense?
Well, as we were talking before we started to shoot, is that this is a highly fluid environment. And so, if you're a seller, for instance, you're coming off a year where you had 20% appreciation last year, and let's just for discussion's sake say we're going to have 7 this year. Well, there's a big difference between 20% and 7%. So it's highly fluid, and but with fluidity, also if you're going to take advantage of it, whether this is personal or work or whatever environment you find yourself in, when you're in a fluid situation, you have to be flexible. And there's a something that I like to use a lot is different zones of our comfort. So when we're very comfortable, we're in our comfort zone. We all know what that is. And then when things start to get a little unfamiliar to us, we move to our stretch zone. And then when things are completely unfamiliar to us and we're very unsure, we hit our panic zone. And our panic zone is when we tend to become paralyzed. Comfort zone is when we tend to kind of zone out. We're not paying a lot of attention. And I think being in this housing environment, you want to be somewhat in your stretch zone a little bit, paying attention, being pretty flexible. Your agent will give you the advice of what's going on in the market. It might change a little bit, from the time you first talk until you put the house on the market. And so, keeping a fluid perspective on the market, and again, not being in that comfort zone, but being more in that stretch zone, I think that'll kind of condition you to be able to take advantage of the market. And again, we could use this in any part of our lives as well. So
awesome. Something I wanted to mention that I can't believe we haven't yet is that if you're listening to the change in the market and you haven't been listening, Chris is also doing a series called Mindful Monday that we've been producing every Monday. You can also check it out on Facebook, on your social media. Honestly, if you're listening to this, you've probably been seeing it. But if you haven't, go to Chris's page and look for Mindful Monday, because you touch on a lot of these similar topics about like getting out of your comfort zone, embracing chaos, or kind of using chaos as a change, embracing chaos as a way to kind of push yourself forward, that sort of thing. So I think it's something that if people haven't been listening to, they're real short 1-minute little segments that people can go check out and listen to. And I've been getting a lot out of them just as I've been editing them. So I just wanted to point people in that direction.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Change and the Market. As always, if you found this information helpful, make sure you follow or subscribe wherever you're listening or watching us. And we'll see you back next week for the next episode of Change and the Market.
Take care, everybody. Thanks.